Most people disappear quietly. No headlines, no theories, just another name added to a database. Elliot Marsh didn't disappear quietly. He left a diary, and the first sentence made everyone uncomfortable enough to dismiss it. If you're reading this, I didn't imagine it. The diary was found 3 weeks after Elliot vanished, hidden in the back room of a public library in Ashford, Oregon. Not checked out, not cataloged, just sitting on a shelf like someone wanted it discovered, but not officially acknowledged. Police barely skimmed it. Doctors didn't read it at all. But the few people who did read, every page came away with the same thought. If Elliot was lying, he was the most consistent liar anyone had ever seen. And if he wasn't, then something else finished his life for him. Elliot Marsh was forgettable by design. 34 years old, divorced, no kids, no criminal record. He worked as a county records clerk, filing reports no one looked at unless something went wrong. He lived alone, paid his bills, followed routines so predictable even his neighbors struggled to recall details about him. Which is why, when he didn't show up for work on October 11th, no one assumed the worst. They assumed a sick day, then a personal day, then an extended weekend. By the third day, police entered his apartment. Everything was normal. Too normal. Wallet on the counter. Phone charging beside the bed. Keys hanging neatly on the hook by the door. No signs of struggle. No forced entry. No note explaining anything. It looked like Elliot had stepped out for a moment and simply failed to return. The diary begins 3 months earlier, written in calm, organized handwriting. Elliot explains he's not journaling for therapy or reflection. He's writing to establish a record. Because if this keeps happening, he writes, I'll need proof that I noticed it when it started. At first, what he notices sound harmless. A streetlight flickers only when he passes beneath it. A neighbor greets him by name, though Elliot is certain they've never spoken. Emails at work reference conversations he doesn't remember having. He explains each one away. Stress, fatigue, overthinking. But he keeps writing. And the entries keep getting longer. Elliot begins documenting patterns. He writes that reality feels intact. Almost too intact. Like something is constantly correcting tiny errors before anyone else notices. Then come the footsteps. He hears them behind him on his walk home. Not echoes, not random noise. Footsteps that match his pace exactly. When he slows, they slow. When he stops, they stop, but always just a fraction of a second late. One night, he tests it. He stops suddenly on Pine Street. The footsteps stop a half-second later. Elliot turns around. No one is there. In August, the handwriting tightens. The sentences shorten. Elliot writes that he stopped journaling for 3 days. And during those days, everything returned to normal. No footsteps. No strange interactions. No missing details. The moment he starts writing again, it resumes. That's when he writes the line that later unsettles everyone who reads it. It doesn't react to fear. It reacts to awareness. On August 19th, awareness costs him time. He leaves work at 5:12 p.m. The exit camera confirms it. He remembers stepping into the parking lot. The next thing he remembers is standing in his kitchen. It's 6:47 p.m. His shoes are wet. Mud stains his pants. His left hand is bleeding. He checks his phone. No calls. No texts. No GPS movement. An hour and 35 minutes are simply gone. From that point on, people begin responding to Elliot as if he's been places he hasn't gone. A co-worker asks why he's wearing the same shirt 2 days in a row. Elliot insists he isn't, then discovers he owns 2 identical shirts and only remembers buying one. A grocery store cashier smiles and tells him he looks better than yesterday. Elliot hadn't been there yesterday. He starts to suspect there's another version of him moving through Ashford, one that interacts with people, one that leaves impressions, one that exists where Elliot doesn't. By September, the diary turns into a survival manual. Rules: don't acknowledge it. Don't talk about it out loud. Don't let anyone read the diary. Don't stay in one place after midnight. Elliot writes that breaking the rules doesn't cause immediate consequences. It causes corrections. Fear finally pushes him to a therapist. He's careful. He talks about anxiety, dissociation, the feeling of being watched. He avoids mentioning doubles or missing time. The therapist nods, takes notes, suggests stress management. Then she asks him a question Elliot never told her about. Do you ever feel like parts of your life are being reassigned? That word lodges in his mind like a splinter. Reassigned. When he asks her about it later, she denies saying it. Elliot never returns. Near the end of September, he tries to gather proof. He sets his phone camera in the living room and lets it record overnight. 8 hours of footage. At 3:17 a.m., the image distorts. For 9 seconds, the picture glitches. Then Elliot appears in the frame, standing in the corner, facing the camera, not blinking. At 3:19 a.m., the video cuts to black. The file corrupts itself, except for one frame. Elliot describes in obsessive detail. He writes that the face is his, but flattened, simplified, like someone rebuilt it from memory. He writes that the eyes are wrong, too focused, like they know where the lens is. He deletes the file, immediately regrets it. The final entries are fragmented, short, panicked. He writes that people are reacting to things he hasn't done yet, that someone used a nickname only his ex-wife ever used, that the version of him people seem comfortable with is not the one writing the diary. He stops sleeping at home, stops going to work, moves constantly. 2 days before his disappearance, he writes, "If something happens to me, it won't be an accident. It won't be suicide. It will be a correction." The final entry is dated October 10th. The handwriting is barely legible. He writes that it's close now, that he can hear it moving when he stops, that he can feel adjustments happening around him. He tells whoever finds a diary to pay attention to anyone who claims they saw him after tonight. That won't be me. The last line is pressed so hard it tears the page. I stayed aware. That's why I'm the one leaving. Elliot Marsh disappears the next morning. Police dismiss the diary as evidence of a psychological break. The therapist confirms dissociative symptoms. The case closes quietly. But sightings continue. A co-worker swears Elliot stopped by the office days later, smiling calm, saying he decided to simplify his life. A cashier remembers him paying in cash the following week. Security footage is requested. None of it exists. The diary eventually ends up archived in the library, forgotten until a librarian reads it out of curiosity. Then fear, then recognition, because on the final page, written in a different hand, is a sentence that wasn't there before. If this feels familiar, check your last missing hour. The librarian resigns 3 days later. She never explains why. Elliot Marsh is still listed as missing. No body, no closure, just a diary, no one wants to talk about. Because if Elliot was wrong, this is the story of a man who lost his mind. But if he was right, then Ashford didn't lose a resident. It kept one. And whatever stayed behind learned something important. It doesn't need belief. It doesn't need witnesses. It only needs you to notice. So if time ever skips when you're paying attention, if people remember you doing things you don't recall, if parts of your life feel reassigned, stop documenting. Stop observing. And whatever you do, don't stay aware too long, because that's how Elliot knew, and that's why he's gone.